last week's minutes? Oh, sorry. I've had a long day. I've been taking the GRAD all day. Abby, would you dispense first roll call?
President Templeman.
Here.
Vice President Seeley.
Here.
You hit record.
I hit record. It's recording. It's recording. Treasurer McLeod. Yeah, got it. Parliamentarian Higgin. Senator Lunsford. Senator Jawad.
Here.
Senator Job. She's here. Senator Parrish. Senator Jacobs.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Washburn.
Here.
Senator Freshour.
Here.
Senator Shaka.
Here.
Senator Bell.
Here.
Senator Method.
Here.
Senator John.
Here.
Senator Sweetland.
Yeah.
Okay. Senator Camarillo.
Here.
Senator Meek.
Here.
Senator Robertson.
Here.
Senator Romero.
Here.
Senator Adams.
Here.
Senator Daniel.
Here.
Senator Dukes.
Here.
Senator Brook.
Here.
Senator Jackson.
Here.
Senator Johnson.
Here.
Senator Mazok.
Here.
Senator Tucker.
Here.
Senator Morrison.
Here.
Senator Mosley.
Here.
Senator Agudelo.
Here.
Senator Hart. Senator Strong.
Here.
Senator Copeland. He's here.
Here.
Senator Seeley.
Here.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
All right. At this time, Secretary McDaniel, would you commence the first one? Oh my gosh. It's been a really long day.
How long
like,
have we
oh,
been doing
Lord.
this?
Discussion of the minutes. Is there any? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, those pass. For open forum, we have Brittany. And the floor is yours. You can do, yes, if you want to.
Hi, my name is Brittany. I'm a grad student here. I work at Vision. I'm hoping all of y'all have heard about Justin Marty, who is hit by a car, who's a men's basketball player on Old Omen. The athletics department would be the natural department that would help him, but because of the NCAA rules, there's all kinds of restrictions on like donations or any kind. Literally, they can't even take notes, like nothing. But so they tried to start like a GoFundMe type of page, but it got shut down. They raised like $3,000, but his bills were over $1 million in the first 2 months. So he's in a lot of trouble and he's not doing well. Like, he's probably going to be paralyzed for the rest of his life. There's hope that he can regain something, but he's probably paralyzed. So honestly, that could have been anyone on our campus. A lot of people walk that road. Obviously, people are trying to make it safer and all that, but I think that the school and the students can do a lot more for him. And so, since the athletics department can't do anything, I've contacted people and I was trying to start something on campus, but there's rules that you can't do on campus. And so I was told to get in touch with student organizations to help reach out to restaurants or different things that can help start fundraisers. So pretty much I am planning on doing a lot of the work, but I can't just be like, I'm going to start this fundraiser if I go to a restaurant. So having an organization behind me would help out a lot. So pretty much just asking if y'all would be interested or if you have any other ideas, because it's an issue and it really could happen again because nothing has really changed. And it's just pretty, like he's pretty much screwed because the girl didn't have insurance. Like they're saying it was his fault, her fault. Like he's not getting any money from it as of right now. So that's what I think.
Well, we will definitely address this as far as what we want to do from an organization standpoint and continue our efforts on trying to do something about the road. It has come up every single year since I've been a freshman. And we normally take it as far as we can, and then the city normally says, well, we don't want to pay for it. So we will continue to work on those efforts. And I have to check and make sure what we are allowed to do from an organization standpoint, since we do receive funds from student fees. I don't. Yeah. So our advisor's on, he'll let us know what we can do as far as fundraising efforts. But I know it's something that I've personally wanted to make sure that he's okay, or to try and assist in that area. Thank you for your concerns. Now we're getting into a speaker's podium. And so at this point, I'm going to relinquish chairmanship to Vice President Seeley for the duration of this presentation, since I'm on the tuition committee. And we will present this proposal, and then I will step back in once that is completed. So.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll work it here in a second, but you can start. So my name's Laura Jackson, and I work here at the university. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Legislative Affairs and Strategic Initiatives, and so I've served along with Vice President O'Donnell as the co-chair of this tuition committee. And I know y'all have already heard from the president about the proposal process. He came at least once to talk about this. I know Preston's talked about it. But essentially, the UT System Board of Regents is the one who sets the tuition rate for all UT System campuses. But they come to us every 2 years and ask us to put together a proposal for them to consider. And so to do that, we put together a committee that's representative of students, faculty, and staff. And then we go around and we seek input from the entire UT Tyler community and put together the proposal in that way. So for the past few weeks, this is just like on an automatic timer?
I'm trying to get Van to speak.
For the past 2 weeks, we've gone out to the campus and have asked all of the campus constituencies to provide us input on what to include in our tuition proposal. And so this is our first draft of taking the feedback from students, faculty, and staff and putting it together in a draft proposal. I want to make sure that everybody knows this is a draft, for one thing. We're still in the input gathering process. Secondly, I want to make sure that you realize we are an advisory committee to the president. And so even when we have our finalized proposal, we'll submit it to the president, but then it's up to the president's discretion as far as what he takes to the regents. And then finally, of course, the regents, it's just advisory to the regents. And so the regents are the ones who make the final decision at the UT system level. So just to kind of give you a snapshot of what this presentation is, that's what we're talking about here. A couple of slides ago, there was a list of all of the committee members. So you can see who all has been involved with drafting this proposal. And so now the next couple of slides, I'm just going to give us a brief snapshot of where the university is financially as we sit today, right now, and then go into the proposal. So as you all know, there has been huge student growth here at the campus. I mean, every year you read the headlines and it says, you know, record-breaking year as far as student enrollment. So that has led to increased investments, including an increased investments in people to serve the students here at the campus. And so the university has tried to do a really good job of keeping our administrative costs under control. There is actually a measurement of that statewide, and our measure as far as administrative costs relative to the university has gone down. The reason it's gone down, as you can see, administrators have kind of stayed constant, or we've actually lost one, whereas we have been adding faculty and staff to serve that new population of students. But all of that investment in faculty and staff and buildings and services, it's not just in personnel, has led to the next chart, which shows that we have been making strategic investments, but it's led us into a deficit in our spending. And so clearly we have some decisions to make. You know, you can't stay under that white line for forever. You know, and so we're looking at some state funding cuts from this past legislative session. Looking into the future, it doesn't look like we're going to get those funding cuts restored because Hurricane Harvey has happened since then, and there are a lot of other expenditures that the state is going to be facing in the future. So we have to think about how are we going to address this financial situation when the state's cutting us and not going to restore that funding, and you know, so you know, how do we want to approach that? So all of this was in the previous presentations if y'all were able to come to any of those open campus forums. So this is really not new information, but I did just want to do a real quick refresher so that we're all on the same page as far as where we're starting. So the next slide talks about the principles. This is also something that we've talked about in all of our open campus meetings over the past few weeks. I mean, you can see them up there, but these are things, and as I get into the proposal portion of the presentation, I put exactly which principle we're thinking about with each of the pieces of our proposal. So we want to make sure and protect access and affordability. The student success and return on investment is huge. The president has been going through this big strategic planning process, and student success and student engagement are two of the 4 pillars of that process. And so that's a really big one, not only for the strategic plan, but also for this tuition proposal. Quality is something that we talk a lot about at UT Tyler. We want to make sure that we invest appropriately to have the highest quality of everything, faculty members, staff members, facilities. That's really important for us to provide quality experience for the students here. Then you have efficiency. Efficiency is something that has gotten a lot of attention here at the university. Having a new president, a new fresh set of eyes come in. We have a relatively new vice president for business affairs to come in and sort of look at our operations and see where we can perhaps do better. And so one of the president's big initiatives is to be a paperless campus. And so save money. Don't keep buying all those cartridges for our printers and the paper it's printed on. And that's just one small thing. There are a lot of initiatives that he is undertaking that are going to create more efficiencies here on campus. This process, I hope, has been, not only this process, but then the proposal afterwards, I hope will be very transparent. We want to receive input. We want to let you know kind of what we were thinking as we develop this and get your ideas. And then flexibility in the tuition, structure of tuition, just to make sure that we're meeting every student's needs. And then finally, a responsibility and shared benefits. That kind of gets back to the state investment. And so, you know, the state has an interest in us, federal government has an interest in us, the local community has an interest in us, and then of course the students have an interest in making sure that a UT Tyler degree is highly valued. And so that just kind of gets to how each constituency is contributing to the value of a UT Tyler degree. So this draft proposal, just sort of an overall summary of it. When we talk about that responsibility and shared benefits, our cut from the state was roughly 6%. And so the committee talked about, you know, just sort of, you know, a 6% adjustment to tuition that kind of reflects that. This is tuition and mandatory fees. This is everything. This is your overall total academic cost. And so kind of looking at that number, but we want to make sure that everybody knows that it is not just sort of standard operating procedure, that for this 6%, you are going to be getting a lot more investment, a lot more services directly benefiting the students and responding to needs that you have identified throughout this process. So as we were developing this proposal, like we said, we were really taking to heart those principles that we mentioned earlier. And so access and affordability, if you'll skip ahead one slide, you can see that we went and we wanted to look and see where UT Tyler stacked up in relation to other institutions. And so our current tuition for an undergraduate student taking 15 hours a semester is $39.11. You compare that to an East Texas average, and so an East Texas average is going to be Stephen F. Austin State University, Sam Houston State University, Texas A&M Commerce, and Texas A&M Texarkana. Those and us. Those are the regional universities that we looked at. And so when you look at that average, you can see that we're very affordable, even after you take into account our tuition proposal. We are still right there. I think we're just a couple of dollars difference in that East Texas average. But one thing that you should know, that East Texas average is definitely going up because two of the institutions that are included in that have already approved a 3.5% increase. And so that 4307 is not going to be the same starting next year. And even after the adjustments that we're talking about, we're still going to be below the state average. And so that is something that the committee was very sensitive to. We wanted to make sure that we were not going to price anybody out of higher education, and specifically a UT Tyler degree. If you back up to the previous slide. And so I've already talked a little bit about efficiency and how we are, even though this is a 6% for 6% type situation, because of the efficiencies that we're going to implement at the institution level, you're going to get a greater than 6% impact for the increased investment. And for a quality program, whenever you look at what other institutions are charging and the services that they're then able to offer because of the increased investment for students, we want to make sure that the quality of a UT Tyler degree is maintained. And so we want to make sure that we have the resources to invest in it. Skip ahead 2 slides. You can see that already, when you look at UT Tyler, this is a statistic that's kept by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. We didn't make this up. When you look at our graduates, a year after graduation, 82% of a UT Tyler that we're able to track, you can't track everybody, but 82% of our graduates have a job or they're in graduate school after they're done at UT Tyler. East Texas average is a little bit lower. The Texas average is even lower than that. And so this is just one metric out of many. It's just, one that the coordinating board tracks. And so it was easy to kind of pull and do a comparison on. But almost anything that you can pull, UT Tyler is highly competitive with the other institutions in the state. And so we do want to be able to maintain that quality and that level of service for our students. So we'll go back real quick. I do want to just reemphasize again, 2 slides back. So for that resident undergraduate taking 15 semester credit hours, currently we're at $39.11. This proposal is going to be phased in over 2 years. And so it's not going to be, an incredible shock. Should this move forward and should the regents approve it, it wouldn't be just a huge shock from 1 year to the next. There would be a phase-in period over 2 years. And those details are available, but that would be getting really in the weeds, and I didn't want to take up the time, but we can definitely share that for anybody who's interested. And that 6% total cost, this is just resident undergraduates. It's going to be the same for non-resident undergraduates and the same for graduate students. And so this is the one I'm focusing on because this is the one that most people are interested in. But that 6% number is the same. All right. So, like I said, that is the total academic cost. And so these fees that I'm about to talk to you all about, that is included in this. This is not in addition to, this is included in that total overall picture. And this is what we did. We had a lot of discussion at the committee level. And I had a lot of one-on-one discussions with people and people emailing me and asking and recommending things. And so this is sort of trying to get the will of the students to determine, where your money is going to be best spent to improve the experience for you. So the first is the student services fee. This is the one we had a lot of discussion about. Currently, we're at $11 per semester credit hour, and it is capped. I think it's statutorily capped at $150. And so, but the activities and the groups that are funded by this student services fee, a lot of people on campus have a vested interest in having a greater amount to invest in them. And so we heard that, and so it's sort of a dual effort. One is to create more opportunity for investment in those groups on campus. And the other is to encourage students to take more than 12 semester credit hours, because if you take more than semester credit hours per semester, well, then you're going to graduate faster and you're going to be out earning that paycheck faster. And so that's a real key initiative that the university wants to make sure that students graduate in a timely manner. So by increasing it from 11 to 13, what that does is anything over 12 semester credit hours, you're essentially getting for free in your student services fee, because you're capped at 150. So you hit 150 at 12 semester credit hours, everything after that is free from a student services fee perspective. And so this is sort of a dual goal here, is to increase investment in those areas and also to encourage timely graduation from students by offering those free fees, free course fees for after 12 semester credit hours. This is going to increase transparency in addition, because that student services fee, you have a whole committee that makes recommendations to the president on how to spend that money, and that committee has students on it. So by adjusting this fee, we give students another opportunity to direct where that money can go. And it adds flexibility, because if there's something that's not going on right now that you want going on next year, well, then you can take it to that committee and say, I want to get this funded. And so it provides a little bit more flexibility with that funding by having it in that cost center. The second thing, and we hear about this a ton in Houston, I want y'all to know that y'all were heard loud and clear, is greater investment in technology. That is something that almost universally we hear from students. And so there is what's called currently on your bill a basic computer access fee. It's actually already been renamed the technology fee. That just happened in the last couple of weeks, so that it's more clear about what those funds can go to and what they do go to. And so we are looking at adjusting that fee from $125 to $150 per semester, again, so that we have that dedicated funding that has to be spent on technology, because that's something that the students are telling us that you want more investment in. And so this is essentially a way to prioritize things for the university. And the next slide. Another thing that we heard about, and honestly, this is something that came up, I think, at the second town hall that we had, was the increasing amount of mental health services that we have an increased demand for it, and that goes along with an increased price tag for it. So looking at that medical services fee, just, a small adjustment to that medical services fee will give us a new pot of money, essentially, to continue to invest in mental health services on campus. And so our counseling center. Another thing that does is a lot of those mental health services are being funded through our student services fee. And so by putting more on the medical services fee, again, we create a little bit more flexibility for those funds that are in the student services fee account.
So that's actually probably the highest account in the entire student service fee is medical services, it's the counseling and testing center. And so that's costing the student service fee close to about $500,000. And so what you do here is you take this increase to help funnel some of that away so that we can be more efficient, be more transparent, and then also to kind of help the student service fee out so that they can actually function the way it needs to. That is another issue that's going to be coming up at the system level, is that other universities are very concerned about the current mental health situation as far as the way universities handle counseling centers. And it is like a definite scheduled topic of discussion for this weekend at UT SAC.
And so then the athletics fee, this is I think the same proposal that was put forth 2 years ago. And the return on investment that students get from the athletics fee, and we've talked about this a ton, just over the course of the weeks and months leading up to this. But when we have a great athletics program to begin with. Invest more in it, then the athletics fund, the athletics program becomes more highly visible, more successful, and honestly, that increases the value of your degrees. kind of hate to say it, you know, because it's an academic, you kind of want it to be based on what happens in the classroom, but a lot of times that degree is valued by how much people recognize, oh yeah, UT Tyler, didn't they win the national championships in softball a couple of years ago? And again, you're more likely to get that job if people kind of recognize the institution you came from, even if it's because of a softball championship. Not taking anything away from the softball team, but this is going to be put, if it goes through the process and gets passed by the regents, then this one would be, again, put to a student vote. And so this is something that the students can, again, provide their voice on, and just like 2 years ago. So if it's not something that the students value, then it's not something that will go into effect. So the last one, and this one is 100% tied to our strategic plan. And this is what the president would use, should it go all the way through, to invest in the initiatives of our strategic plan. And it is a new student success fee at $100 per semester. All of those bullet points down there. So through our strategic planning process, we have had dozens, I can't remember how many, but dozens of open meetings where the president kind of laid out a vision of becoming the educational and economic driver of East Texas. And then he created a web portal for faculty and staff to input their ideas for initiatives that the university can undertake to help achieve the goals of our new proposed strategic plan. And so these are 10 or 12, however many bullet points, 8 or 10 bullet points that the university community inputted and that the president included in his first draft of a strategic plan. At the same time that the tuition proposal goes to the Board of Regents in February, the UT Tyler strategic plan is going to go to the Board of Regents. And so the initiatives that are included in that strategic plan, should they be approved by the Board of Regents, those will be the initiatives that would be funded with this new student success fee. So, you know, there's a lot of balls in the air, and that's why I have that little disclaimer down there. This is not an exhaustive list. This is not saying that these are the initiatives of the strategic plan that are going to get funded, because we don't know if this is going to be the strategic plan that the regents approve, and we don't know if this is going to be the tuition plan that the regents approve. But assuming that everything is as it stands on November 15th, well, then these would be the types of initiatives that would be funded with this new fee. And it is a way to be very clear about what the purpose of the university is, and then back that up with investment from the university community. So there are two structural changes that we're looking at with the way that we charge tuition and fees. One is to create a differential tuition program at $20 per semester credit hour. This is something that a lot of institutions across the nation and across the state do because there are programs that are just simply more expensive to deliver than other programs. And so, for example, I'm a political scientist. That's what I got all of my degrees in. It's pretty cheap to educate somebody like me. I happen to know that Preston here is an accounting major, and it's a little bit more expensive to educate him than it was to educate me. And so by doing a differential tuition, you're essentially making sure that you have a relationship between the cost of education and the price of education. And so we identified some of the programs here at the university that are a little bit more expensive to deliver. And then this way we can sort of funnel those funds to those programs to ensure that they maintain their high quality. The good news is that the students who are in these programs generally, and like me as a political scientist, and I think that my first job out of college was like $32,000 a year or something like that. But for a CPA, you're going to get, you know, in the six figures probably very soon after you graduate. And so there is a return on that investment that there may not be in some of the majors that aren't going to be within this differential tuition rate program. The Houston Engineering Center, you know, we have had a lot of conversations. This is another one that drove a lot of the conversation in our tuition committee. And it was specifically about our distance site campuses, not just Houston, but also Palestine and Longview, and how they are charged for services that they may or may not have access to here at the main campus. what we determined after a lot of time and attention to the matter was that we're already making some adjustments to our Longview and Palestine students by offering them memberships at gyms in their locations. But for Houston, that's just not, a lot of the things just are not workable solutions for them. And so in order for Houston students to benefit the most from the tuition and fees that they pay, we're creating a separate Houston account with a Houston Engineering Center fee. All of those funds will go directly to benefit the students at the Houston Engineering Center. Then they will not pay the Cowan Center fee, the recreational facilities fee, or the student union fee, because quite honestly, consider they're just not going to be able to drive in 4 hours to go to a movie on the line or to come to homecoming or the chili cook-off. It's a lot more burdensome for them, even than for our students in Palestine and Longview. Some of the challenges, we had talked about doing it for all distant site campuses. We had a lot of conversation about that. Some of the challenges are there are a number of students who take courses at Longview and at Tyler, at Palestine and at Tyler. And so trying to determine who is a Palestine student and who is a Longview student versus a Tyler student, and then if they showed up to go to a Cowan Center show and we said, oh, sorry, you're Palestine, you don't get to come to this show, there just might be a lot of confusion there. And so we eventually made the decision to just go with Houston in our proposal for this time. We'll see how it works. And if Palestine and Longview see that and they want to pursue something like that in the next proposal process, well, then I think that the next committee, whoever that may be, would certainly be open to it. And we're creating a record of, we discussed it. It's not necessarily that they don't fit that model. It's just that Houston was an easy fit to this model. And so we went with that. So I think that's it. We'll see if I have another.
Yeah, I can take up for that.
Do I have another slide? I just want to make sure I think that was it. But
Question.
yeah, so questions. So
I'm gonna get the Zoom question.
Yeah.
And,
Because a lot of our office are closed.
so it's just Zoom question.
Okay. So, okay. Okay. Can you specifically say what the fees go for? Those are very big categories. What's the point of increasing the fee if it's capped at 150?
for the student services, Preston can answer that question a lot better than I can.
So the student services fee, if you're a full-time student right now at 15 hours, I think the actual math comes to like 13 or 14, you're already capped. Now, the reason why it doesn't make sense to increase the cap instead of increase the fee is once you do that, it has to have legislative approval. And so the law is actually written right now to where the fee is capped at 150, and if you want to go over 150, the Texas State Legislature has to approve that. You can change the dollar amounts in per credit hour without having to go to the Texas State Legislature over it. And so any student who is at full-time will not be paying any more than what they do right now. Any student who is only taking lesser hours, who is not full-time, will see that $2 per credit hour increase. But that would still generate a decent amount of revenue for that fee, and that fee is behind quite a bit. It's almost completely wiped out as far as after your increases for merit raises for salaries and insurance costs for the staff members that are paid through that fee, you almost have no increase. And so anybody's budgets who needs help, we don't really have any way to give them any help unless we cut someone else's.
I guess give some examples. I know the counseling center is one that we talked about that was almost $500,000 from that fee. What else is funded out of that fee?
So another thing that we could possibly look at is, let's say the athletic fee does go up as well. So you get the extra $4 there. We might be able to fund the cheer and dance team. That's a $60,000 account that's in the student services fee right now. And we could move that out. And so anytime we clear up these accounts and move them into places where we feel it's more appropriate, student services has more money. Yeah, so it directly goes back to us as far as who can handle that. So people like campus or student activities, anything that's a student service. Residence life actually asked that they be taken out of that account because they were fully funded. They used to be funded out of there. It's just things happened when these accounts were set up. Dr. Mabry had staff members who were doing multiple positions. So for instance, our rec sports coordinator, Bob Hepler, is the track and cross country coach, but he's also the director for rec sports. So he is paid out of the rec sports account as that's his salary because he's the director, but he's also a coach. And so he's doing more than one thing. Well, when we have people get hired specifically as coaches, their salaries were coming out of other areas. And so their funds were coming out of other areas as well. And so we had to start weaning people off of the fees that they were no longer applicable to. And we moved them into their appropriate accounts. And that has been a process because without a raise in revenue, you can't move people around where they need to be.
Next question, on the ballot, if the regents approve it and go to the students for a vote and go to a student vote, will it specifically say what this money will go to, or will it just say like student services or student success fee?
I believe that, and this is one thing after we submit it, so we'll submit this proposal to system early December. It doesn't go to the regents for a vote until February. And through that time, the system general counsel reviews it and will provide us guidance. The way that I anticipate the student services fee, the student success fee, excuse me. So the student success fee, the way that I anticipate it will be as an incidental fee, which is regential approval only. And so after the regents approve it, it's effective. Because the incidental, what we do is we say, here are the things that we're going to fund with it, and here's how much it costs, and so that drives the amount. And that's a statutory fee in the education code. It's called incidental fee.
As far as the way the ballot is written, generally the fees that go to a student vote are put on the SGA spring ballot.
Right.
And that will be the case this year. That's
For
right.
the athletics fee.
Okay.
Yes.
The ballot can be written however we feel is appropriate. So if it wants to be listed on there, how it's used, that's certainly possible.
But as far as what we anticipate from the Board of Regents, the only one that SGA would be needing to put on the ballot would be the athletics fee.
So the athletics fee is the only one that's going to go to a student vote.
Because the regents will either approve this proposal before our vote, and because our votes are not until after their
And that could-
process.
That could change if we get different guidance from the attorneys.
Sorry, Lindsay, Katie sent like 1,000 questions. She said, why are the Houston students still being charged the $175 if they're taking away these fees because they don't benefit from them? Are they creating programs for them? It just doesn't make sense. Or if they're benefiting from those fees, why make a new fee when it's still not applicable to them?
Because that Houston Engineering Center will be applicable to them. And so it's going to create, and Bill might be able to explain this better, so correct me if I'm wrong. It'll create what's in our budgeting system, what's called a cost center. And that cost center will be for Houston Engineering Center. And so anytime there is an expense for the Houston Engineering Center, for example, they need updated lab equipment there, then that would come out of that Houston Engineering Center pot, that cost center. And so those funds, instead of going to the Cowan Center or to the HPC that the Houston students may not get use out of, they're going to go to expenses directly tied to the Houston students.
So we started to notice that when we had all of those discussions is, okay, well, Longview and Palestine, it's really not that hard to deal with them in certain areas, whereas Houston, it was, okay, if we can't do this, they're kind of in trouble because it's a 4-hour drive and there's no really other way to handle it. So this fee is specifically for their needs that they're letting us know about.
So they're just making up a need for the fees so that they can charge the Houston campus students. So they're just making up a need for the fee so that they can still charge the Houston campus students.
They're expressing that need is what we have. Houston senators on the, or representatives from the Houston campus on the.
Mr. Just to clarify maybe, instead of charging fees that total $175 that Houston campuses don't have access to their services, you're instead charging that same amount they've already been paying and giving them services that they have access to.
Right.
So you're not charging them any more or less. you're instead giving them more for their money.
Yes, that's the goal anyway, and to be very transparent about it. So, yeah. I mean, I hope that this is a positive thing for the Houston students. It's more transparent. It's going to go directly to what Houston students need, as opposed to funding something that what we heard is that they can't use.
And I just want to make sure there's nothing else on Zoom for now. I'd rather just get those out of the way before they get buried
No, I
in the
think
chat box. You understand?
Katie said I skipped a question. I'm trying to figure out which question or what it is about. I think I skipped those would be additional fees for the students of those colleges.
Differential.
Differential tuition.
It's
fees,
not
yeah.
a fee. It's tuition.
She can't. I can't hear.
So,
Sorry.
yes, Senator Bell.
Can I just get a little clarification? I noticed College of Pharmacy wasn't necessarily on there, and I understand our tuition and fees is definitely separate and in a different kind of area all of its own. How will this affect us? Are we still going to be capped at the 150? Because I do believe we still pay student service fees and all that other stuff as well.
Right. As far as the way that it affects College of Pharmacy students, y'all do have a completely separate process because you don't receive formula funding. But I don't anticipate that this is going to change anything for you all other than what the College of Pharmacy proposes. And I don't know what that is. Dean Bruner is on the committee.
I saw.
Yeah.
Senator Morrison?
Y'all changing anything with scholarships, like either the way they're administered or in the amount?
Yes. Yes. And you could see in the student success fee, one of the things one of the bullets had to do with scholarships. And so,
Can you speak to that specifically, possibly?
well, for one thing, a state mandate with tuition is that you have a certain percentage of the tuition that is set aside for scholarships. And so if tuition goes up, well, then those set-asides go up. And so more scholarship money is available to students. So that's one thing. The other thing is we are aligning our scholarships so that we can provide some students who qualify a quote-unquote full ride. And that has not been possible in the past. We've sort of piecemealed different pots of funds together. And so with this and with some increased investment into our scholarship pot, we'll be able to use scholarships as a recruiting tool and to better benefit students. And so that's definitely something. And it's something that regardless of a tuition proposal is a very high priority of the president, and not just with tuition money and with state money, but y'all need to know that he is out there being the greatest advocate for UT Tyler and seeking philanthropic funds as well. And so there is going to be a big push to increase our scholarship amounts and also change the structure of the scholarships so that they'll work better for the students.
A lot of those students being targeted have already been invited to several events on campus and have toured campus and have been made acknowledged of or aware of the fact that this scholarship opportunity is becoming available. So the recruiting process for these high value students, your valedictorians, your high ACTs, they're already being made aware that we're actively trying to gain the top students at least in the region.
Under for semester one, the completely new one, that doesn't go for students, right? Like, it's perfect.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another one as well. You talked about increasing the athletics fee. Are there specific things that athletics needs that their needs are going up that we're going to be funding with that?
Athletics is already behind. So athletics has a couple of areas, like when those budgets were originally set up, where subsidiaries of athletics, like the cheer and dance team, other people, coaches' salaries, they were all placed in different accounts. And so they're technically athletic line items, but they're needing to be pushed back into athletics. Now, have we had any full clarification on D2 yet?
Mm-hmm.
No. So if we go D2, everything becomes more expensive. And that's, I mean, a crazy amount of extra operational charges that the school will have to incur. And so you'll see a lot of things of that nature that will need that funding. So D2 in itself would eat up all of the fund that we would gain extra. If we don't go D2, we would still need that $4. And we have been needing that $4 for quite a while.
Senator Freshour.
And didn't you just say earlier that if we increase that fee, that means we would take the cheer and dance's salary out of the student services fee and actually put it in the cheer athletics fee?
It's something that's being talked about with Dr. Patterson, but it depends on if he can or not. So it would be up to see if there's availability in the athletic budget.
Like the main idea of a lot of these is that by increasing tuition, we can start putting things in the actual areas that they need to be, then the actual true student service fees can go back to us and give us more things that we actually want.
And one of the things that I'll talk about is when you go back and you look at where all those years where we were in deficit. And so if you think of the school as a business, when a business becomes larger and they start expanding at the rate that we were, most businesses or corporations will offer common stock so that they can fund that expansion, because profits just can't eat up all of that. You'll never have enough profits to really expand at the rate like that. So we're buying things like land, buildings. The new business building is not cheap. And so when you have those things, the state helps out, the system helps out, but UT Tyler still has to make quite a bit of an investment on that future product that we're going to have. And so right now we've been investing in the future, and we're starting to get to the point where we're at the future and we haven't raised anything to pay for it. So we have to start realizing that we are now at the time where we are offering way more than we ever have, and we are behind. We can't support all of the things that we are trying to do. Savannah.
Secretary McDaniel.
The athletes were told that funding for going D2 would come from the president's budget and students wouldn't have to pay for it.
D2 hasn't been a part of our, I want to be clear, that's not been a part of our discussion. The need for athletics is outside of D2. So I don't want to sound like we're contradicting what's been said.
And what he's probably talking about there is the fact that scholarships cannot be funded. So like all of your D2 scholarships, they cannot be funded through the athletic fee. So your scholarships have to come from a fund that's guaranteed, and fees vary every single year. So that budget line item would have to come out of designated tuition, and those scholarships would cost, I think if Dr. Patterson gave me the right math, it's about $2.2 to $2.5 million. So that is where he's talking about designated tuition, his budget.
Senator Freshour.
And I would just like to point out that like this whole difference from that first year to 2 years that you point out, it's less than $500. It's $484. And considering we hear a lot in student government about how students want certain things and we want certain things, I feel like $500 is a small price to pay for all the big things that they're going to bring. And I know a lot of people specifically want set things told to us, like we want to know exactly where that $200 is going to go. We can't get that just yet, but like overall, like things will get better, and that's like the main point of increasing tuition. It does seem annoying though, I gotta pay more, but $484 is not that huge in comparison to other things. Overall.
Secretary McDaniel.
Katie brought up a good point, and I agree with the statement. We really need to think about it seriously, because while we do think all these fees are really important, I guess you said it's over a 2 year span.
Mm-hmm.
So more than half of us are gone in 2 years. So this doesn't affect us. So while you might think it's a great idea for yourself, you're not gonna have to pay for it. So you need to think about your long-term effects of the future students at UT Tyler. Well, like $500 is definitely a significant percentage with the tuition as low as it is right now.
Yes and no, because the thing with that is that I graduate in May, but I will carry a UT Tyler degree until I retire. It's going to be useful for me until I retire. So if we don't compete with anyone anymore because we just stay behind, and a UT Tyler degree is not worth anything, when I show up to ask for a job, I have a piece of paper that is now less valuable. So yes, I'm not the one that's paying that increase in fee, but it affects my finances just as much. And so because it will translate to how much I'm going to get as a starting salary, and also if I'm going to get that job in the first place. So that's something that you also have to consider. But I do agree that, you know, we have to be cognizant of the fact that a lot of us will be gone.
I think we move more into the discussion, and to be respectful of their time, we should probably save those types of comments for our discussion, so that if they need to leave or go take care of more business, we can allow them to do that.
All right.
So if there are no more questions, just want to check one more time. Questions.
Oh, Katie.
All right, go ahead.
Especially because we don't offer a lot of scholarship money compared to other schools.
That
Well,
was
that's
one
our
of the things that we just talked about, was the fact that they're investing heavily in new scholarships.
Because 500 is a significant percentage when our tuition is as low as it is. I think increases need to be made, but not this many all at once, especially because we don't offer a lot of scholarship money compared to other schools. Scholarships are a huge priority. I can't tell you how much we've talked about scholarships in almost all of our strategic planning sessions with the president that have been completely open to the entire campus community. I'm going to say of the dozens that we've had, it's come up at 97% of them. I personally haven't been in all of them, but it is something that one of the first things, like I said, you have fresh eyes from a new leader, and that was one of the first things that he noticed and one of the first things that he wanted to fix. So I can't say anything other than that.
Yes.
Just to make sure, so no current students, their scholarships would be changed by this.
Our current scholarships, I mean, I don't anticipate that they would be. Current scholarships be affected by this proposal?
No, like there's a lot of renewable scholarships now, but to give you an idea that if tuition goes up, the cost of that scholarship has to be higher to keep pace. And so one thing that I'm not sure was completely done in the past was if there was a tuition increase, I don't think they were increasing the scholarship budget other than the set-aside. By state law, 15% of the tuition has to go into a set-aside program, and that's all scholarships. But the campus-funded scholarships, directly funded scholarships, that hasn't changed. And that's where the president recognized, and I recognized, we needed to really infuse much more money into the campus scholarship program, because that's more discretionary scholarships, whereas the set-asides have particular restrictions. You know, maybe you have to be a Texas resident, and maybe you have to demonstrate financial need, whatever. Whereas the campus scholarships can be used however we want. So that's where we have to make a large infusion of scholarship money to catch up with where we ought to be in terms of scholarship funding available for students. And that gives us the opportunity to match up, along with financial aid office, where students got financial aid and where they have a shortfall between their financial need and the resources they got. We can come in with campus scholarships, which are, again, purely discretionary, and close that gap. So that's what we're trying to do with the infusion of scholarship money, is we just need a lot more money there.
Thank you so much. Yes, I know. This time, the president will be resuming his position as a chair.
Now for officer reports. As y'all can see, I was pretty wiped out at the very beginning of the meeting, in between preparing for all of these presentations, and then I took the GRE this morning. So I've been having quite a busy week. and I will continue to have a busy week as I travel to Austin for UT-SAC this weekend. So I'm gonna be tired, but it's gonna be okay. So, Vice President Seeley.
Over this last week, I've been finishing some preparations for our final sort of program for this semester. I've also been preparing for UT-SAC and also getting our calendar ready for the spring semester and working on things like elections, midnight breakfast, our community service sort of program we'll be doing in the spring, and just making sure that our budget will support all of these things.
Secretary McDaniel.
Me and my committee, we're designing some stuff for the move through finals. We changed the name of it. It's not going to be called Slay Finals because it's during Christmas break. It's funny. It's cute. What? Oh, Slay third finals. Gotcha. I hope everyone has a good Christmas break. That's all I have. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, that too. And then next person.
Just
I have them. So if you
okay. So if you'll handle both of theirs.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, so Jacob's officer reports. He attended the Diwali event, hosted by the ISA and NSA that SGA sponsored. It was very successful and great event, and it filled BUC theater. He's emailing people as usual, spending most of his time preparing for Atlanta, presenting the budget to the Senate after Thanksgiving break, and that's all he has for his. And then Katie's officer reports. She's just been getting ready for the Model UN conference in Atlanta, but after Thanksgiving, she'll be getting together with the new senator for his training meeting. And she's trying to get election applications live.
They're ready. As soon as Josh tells me that they're available, I'll put the link on Canvas.
Okay. Another thing, student voice reports we will not be doing this week because your follow-up would happen during Thanksgiving break. So that didn't make a lot of sense to us. So we decided to forego that this week. But the follow-ups from last week are nursing first. So if you don't have to start.
I talked to one of the clinical instructors, and she said that she's going to talk to an instructor that's ahead of leadership of the class, and so she really liked the idea of mock interviews. So.
And Patriot Village.
We didn't really, I highly emailed. We didn't get a response. She didn't get a response yet on that. Will we do that last year with Jacob? Asked the same thing, had the same concerns. They didn't get back to them on the sprinkler situation. So that was our biggest concern. But we still haven't heard back.
Can you all speak up? Sorry.
If it continues to not be addressed, come to me about it, and I will handle it.
I was looking at last week. What was the issue? Sprinkler spraying cars and not grass.
It's becoming a hazard.
Have you guys contacted like specifically maintenance and or what's the people who take care of?
They contacted Andy Cross, which is the Assistant Director of Facilities Management. So that would be his department.
You can try true maintenance as well. So that's like
Committee reports, student life.
So we submitted two
Purchase
requests, and they're both approved. One was for tacos, and the other one was for two sets of Bluetooth headphones and a speaker to give away during late finals.
Yeah.
Communications.
I mainly said it in my ops report, but yeah, we met this week and we started to make designs for the upcoming Slate through finals, which will be on December 11th. Mandatory. Actually, I don't know about that yet.
Yeah, December 11th will be mandatory.
Okay, yeah, December 11th will be mandatory. And then we're going to work next time on officer elections and senate elections.
SGAC.
Last week, we approved $400 for the Patriot Catholics formal event that's going to be held on December 1st. It is open to any and all students who want to go and take part in the festivities. It seems like it would be a pretty good event. We do not have any requests for this upcoming week, but we will be meeting tomorrow. Treasurer McLeod will leak out, and Senator Biggs will share that.
Rules Committee.
I know we talked about this last week, because we ended up meeting twice in the last week since the games moved out. But again, the main thing was going to be that we make the Rules Committee ad hoc and at the discretion of the president, and that we get the Student Affairs Committee and have it chaired by a parliamentarian. And so we'll be working through those technicalities in the bylaws of the Constitution.
Student Affairs.
We met this week and we mainly sat in the UC. We were trying to get people to take the bike share survey. We got a few people, we got quite a bit of people to take it, but we realized that a big issue with surveys is probably the fact that people don't know their student ID. Josh, I believe, you said you were gonna change it. I don't know if you got to or not. We wrapped up a little bit afterwards, but he was gonna change the survey to where it was just your Patriot email. People hopefully know that better than they know their student ID. Please keep encouraging people to take it. He said we had about close to 400, 300 something.
300. I think we just breached 300 either, or we're real close. I got about 45 people take the survey in approximately 1 hour, so that's pretty solid.
So yeah, keep encouraging people because, you know, we don't want to, especially after talking about things like tuition, we want to make sure we're spending money wisely. Like, do students want this?
And truthfully, approximately 300 students taking a survey is a good turnout
Yeah,
for our university.
but just one barrier.
Normally, if it goes out to students and faculty and staff, you hit the 500 mark. And that's faculty and staff normally pretty active on those. At this point, is there any old business? Vice President Seeley.
Motion to endorse the tuition proposal.
Second.
All right, it's been motioned and seconded to endorse the tuition proposal. Vice President Seeley, you have the floor.
So the nature of this motion is not that we are approving anything. It's that they've made a proposal. They will submit it to Dr. Tidwell, submit it to the regents, and that we as the representatives of the students, our endorsement does carry weight in those decisions and in taking it. So voting to endorse this means that we think that the proposal they made was sufficient, and that this motion can be amended later should we want to recommend changes to the proposal. Again, I don't know if they'll take our recommendations, but our endorsement or our recommendations carry weight as we are the representatives of the students.
And like Laura said at the very beginning, this was still an input session for us. This is still kind of, okay, we got what y'all guys in the targeted areas. We've now allocated percentages and money to those targeted areas. Are y'all okay with that? And so that is kind of what we are trying to assess by going to these different groups of people. And those groups of people being, you know, SGA, campus-wide, faculty senate, and administrations. Secretary McDaniel.
For Katie, she said, I think it's too many increases all at once. I would vote against the motion at this time.
Senator Freshour.
Tuition needs to go up. I mean, things need to be paid for. We complain about way too many things to not raise the cost of tuition. Like, I get it. And the concept of like being most of us will be gone, I mean, it depends. I'd like to go to grad school here because we do have such a great program. And to see things like grad programs and scholarships go up, I mean, it's critical to, like you said, your degree value. But either way, like, I don't really care about that. Like, I want a better student experience while I'm here, and unfortunately, that costs money. I feel like anything you want costs money, whether it be school or something else. So I get that it does kind of seem. I mean, it's all perspective. It doesn't seem like a lot to me, but it seems like. But again, so $500 a semester. You spend 8 semesters here, $2,000, $1,000 a year. I mean, most of us have to take out loans anyways to pay for school, but we need tuition increase to have better things and better education.
Vice President Sealy.
I was thinking similarly to Katie at first, but when I was looking back at some of the notes I took, the 5 fee changes that they are proposing are rolled into that adjustment that she pointed out in the beginning, that $484. That's not in addition to. And also, she made a comment at the beginning that I felt made a lot of sense when I looked back and thought about what she was saying, that our budget from the state was cut by 6%. And so in essentially, we lost 6%. And over the next 2 years, we would get that 6% back with this increase. Or the university would get that 6% back because it's not foreseeable that we'll get that 6% back from the state in light of recent natural disasters and other needs in just the whole, like just statewide, as far as funding goes. So the only way to get that 6% back that is essential to providing a better quality education and better quality university experience is by raising tuition fees. And to me, that made a lot of sense, that if we're going to lose money, how do we get it back and be able to do what's best for the university and for the students?
Just a general point of information for y'all, because I was there to see those numbers. We say 6%, and that doesn't sound like a terribly huge amount of money, but that's a little over $6 million that we lost. And so every single school pretty much got cut. It's, it was unfortunate that it happened, but it was just the state decided that higher education was not a priority for that budget, and they dropped everybody. And we got probably in the middle. We didn't get the lowest cut. We didn't get the highest cut. And then another thing is that the most of that $400 or almost $500 is tuition, and the fees account into that, but the fees do not really go up all too much, other than that one larger fee that was moved. And that has its own brand new initiatives to it. Senator Bill.
I also just have to voice that I agree with it. I would like to see us endorse this just because of the points that you both made. And also because, even with the increase in fees, we're still right there at the average. It's not like our tuition is higher than most or by any means. And so I feel it's an appropriate measure to take due to budget cuts, due to benefits versus, downsides.
We will approach the current average.
Yes.
The actual average afterwards will be completely different because they're all requesting the increases as well. Senator Freshour.
And you're paying a current average cost for an above average university, as it was clearly pointed out as far as where we rank certain things. So we're still getting a lower cost of education for a higher quality of education.
Secretary McDaniel.
Regarding Katie, or for Katie, I would be more willing to vote for it if the student body had more of a say. I don't think it's fair that the regents can implement the majority of these fees without it coming to the student vote first or after. I think we really need to consider that. If we endorse this and send it to the regents and it gets passed, there's no going back. No students get to actually vote on a lot of these proposed increases. We need to think more about this.
Vice President Sealy.
In the past, student votes have been highly unsuccessful because students in general are uninformed and they're apathetic. They see a dollar increase and they don't care what it does for them or does for future students. They care about their $2 per credit hour that they don't feel like spending at that time. And a student vote will never raise a fee even when it needs to be raised. And we saw that 2 years ago and again before that. No fees were raised, and there was clear research and clear planning that showed that the increases to those fees were calculated increases made for the benefit of the students. And I don't know if there's anything we can do to change the way that sort of works, whether we can have town halls or information or send out emails. I don't know if that will make a difference.
Just how the law is written. we don't really get much of a say so. That's a legislative ordeal, and we researched that when we made the proposal. What can we give input to? What can we not? I mean, these were several hour-long meetings. Senator Romero.
I just want some clarification. Regardless if we endorse this or not, if this is still going to be voted on by the region.
Yes.
So, us endorsing has nothing to do with it or not.
No, solely because this was still meant as an input session. So we are not turning in that document as is unless it is favorable. So if SGA says we don't like this, and Faculty Senate also says that they don't like it, and campus body says they don't like it, we'll edit it. This is the first time we've put numbers to paper and let people see it, and we are still trying to figure out what y'all guys want to do about those numbers. So it is not due until, I believe, early December, so December 6th or something like that. You have a follow-up?
Yes, I also want to say that this will personally affect me as we are freshmen, and I support this 6% because I think that the student experience needs to be brought up, especially because we are getting a higher education here, and compared to other schools that get the same education, we're very low on the student activities and involvement.
One of my biggest things when I was talking about all of this was the scholarship aspect.
Yeah.
If I was to go to school at UT Tyler again after the scholarships were rolled out, I would be going here for free. So this is a huge opportunity for people to be able to get a hold of that type. And we have never, that scholarship amount has stayed the same on the website every single time the tuition increase has gone up. And this is the first time we're doing something about it, which is a big deal. And that will cut, costs to your students who are showing academic excellence. Senator Frischauer.
And like as far as like the student, like the fee that we do get to vote on, which is the student.
The athletic fee.
Like it is our job as student body or student government to talk to our constituents and explain what this actually means. Because clearly, I mean, some people are showing up to these town hall meetings and that's great. And there's another one tomorrow. I just got 5 emails about it today. So it's not even that like they're not being made aware of. They have the opportunity. So let's be that added point to go continue telling them like, here's what this money actually goes to, at least on the ones they can vote on. And even the ones they can't, just explain to them what does that $484, here's what it's planning on doing. So that's the whole point of why we're in this, is to tell people what tuition increase is actually doing, and that it's not 100% a negative thing. All these things we talk about, we need to go tell our constituents.
Secretary.
This is Katie. She said, I think we have a responsibility, it's going to reiterate basically what she said. I think we have a responsibility to our constituents to get their input before we endorse it. We can have a town hall to make sure that they're educated and get their opinions and decide whether to endorse based on that. She said, so I'd like to motion to table the motion until we have a constituent input on the draft proposal.
Second. It's been motioned and seconded to table this motion until we've had constituency input on the first draft. You've already obtained the floor for that.
By the original motion, like if we say it, I know there's another motion, but I'm just clarifying. Would that mean that we never talk about this again? We could never send more input?
I don't believe so. I think
It's
we
just
could
saying-
if necessary.
Or endorsing the idea?
Yeah, endorsing this first draft.
Oh, so it does say that we only be endorsing this first.
Yes.
Now, if the draft was altered, that endorsement would kind of be void, and we can bring it back up. But that's not guaranteed to happen. So I think that as far as covering our bases, it is smart to do what Katie's asking and table until we've had time to go and see, and basically to do our
No,
jobs.
I agree. I just want to make sure
Now that your point of information is over, it's been motioned and seconded to table, and so we've had constituency input. So that will be after the town halls. We come back up in the next meeting after Thanksgiving. All in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? That still passes. Is there any other old business? Hearing none, is there any new business? Advisor comments?
In regards to the tuition that y'all just tabled, the discussion and as far as proposal table on that, getting feedback doesn't just necessarily constitute a town hall, because I've seen how the town hall turnouts have been from students. I think y'all need to really, word of mouth is still one of the most powerful ways of getting the information out there. I think y'all need to get students, if y'all are going to do a town hall, y'all need to get students to show up to those town halls. You could easily send out a survey. You could, there's a lot of different ways, but the proposal is due to Regents early December. And so I want to stress that to y'all, that y'all have to move very quickly on this. And with Thanksgiving break being next week, that means that when y'all get back, y'all have to be ready to go to get that feedback in and for y'all to discuss it the next meeting. Because if y'all fail to do that, then the proposal will go on without y'all's input. And so I want y'all to be able to have that input, but at the same time, I do agree that y'all need to have information from other students to make an informed decision before moving forward. Other than that, I've heard nothing but good things about the midnight breakfast. I heard it was y'all were the most out of this year's group. Y'all did a real good job of showing up and participating. I'm really proud of y'all. I've also been hearing that some of y'all are attending other student groups events. I think that is a good look on student government, that you're going out there, participating in other groups activities, and then also encourage them to come back to student government, whether it be participating in SGAC or come voicing their concerns to y'all. And so keep up the good work. But as far as the tuition, you've got a lot of work to do and not a lot of time.
Hey, Josh.
Yes.
If there's a way for me to get the PowerPoint from Ms. Jackson, or is that her name?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I post it on social media wise, Canvas, to get it out there?
Well, it's going to be part of the Zoom video, so I think you could post the YouTube video link, and then they can see the proposal and also hear Laura talk about it, and then also hear y'all's questions and discussions, because just having the PowerPoint out there may not fully inform someone who's just looking at the PowerPoint. It's good to kind of have someone walking through the PowerPoint. And so I think posting the YouTube video link would be potentially helpful for people.
Only thing that fears me is when I post this is going to be an 1.5 hour long YouTube video. And once someone loads this up and sees it's an 1.5 hours, they're going to put that X right back at it.
No, I agree.
Speaking.
I try to cut it tomorrow, where it's just a tuition conversation.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Just my schedule is very complex.
No,
so, which is why we're having conversations. But I think I can do my best to try to get that taken care of.
Okay, because then I can just post that part on social media and then get it out there.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Cool. Thanks.
Any announcements? None? Secretary McDaniel, would you dispense second roll call, please?
President Tippleman.
Here.
Vice President Seeley.
Here.
Treasurer McLeod. Here. Parliamentarian Hicken. Here. Senator Lunsford. Senator Drawad.
Here.
Okay. Senator Joe. She's here. Senator Parrish. Senator Jacobs.
Here.
Senator Williams.
Here.
Senator Washburn.
Here.
Senator Freshour.
Here.
Senator Shaka. Senator Bell.
Here.
Senator Method. Gotcha. I can hear you. Senator John.
Here.
Senator Sweetland.
Here.
Senator Camarillo.
Here.
Senator Meek.
Here.
Senator Robertson.
Here.
Senator Romero.
Here.
Senator Adams.
Here.
Senator Daniel.
Here.
Senator Dukes.
Here.
Senator Fruit.
Here.
Senator Jackson.
Here.
Senator Johnson.
Here.
Senator Mazzock.
Here.
Senator Tucker.
Here.
Senator Morrison.
Here.
Senator Mosley. Senator Aguilera. Senator Hart. Senator Strong.
Here.
Senator Copeland. He's here. Senator Seeley.
Senator Sweetland, motion to adjourn. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, we are adjourned. Lindsay.
Well done.